Hey everybody, Brian Gleize here from the Scott Agency with another episode of the Benefit Builders. As you know, I have Matt Spate here, who's the CEO of our organization, and we have Mark Blassie joining us remotely, who is our Vice President and partner here in Keystone. One of the things that we want to do in this podcast, because when we work together so much, you kind of become family. And we've had a loss in our family, in our Keystone family. And Mark, you will be able to talk a little bit about this better than I will. Go ahead and talk about our loss, and let's just recognize the individual.
Thanks, Brian. It was a sad day yesterday. We discovered that Keystone's retired CEO, David Bodker, passed. David was responsible for making Keystone what it is today, and he always supported the tagline, "We're better together," and I think we try to recognize that in our podcast, that we're better when we collaborate together. So we would just like to take 10 seconds and a moment of silence and say a small prayer for David and his family.
Thanks, Mark. Well said. One thing I'll say quickly about David is, you only see him a couple of times throughout the year at a Keystone function. I see him in Washington, D.C. every year, and occasionally he would make a trip into Missouri at one of our partner meetings here. And the weird thing was that I loved about him was no matter when you saw him, he knew who I was. And how many people does he shake hands with every day throughout the last 30 years? And it might have been a year since the last time I saw him, but he knew who I was. And that meant a lot.
No, and that's a phenomenal ability, one that I actually struggle with. But I think what this enforces is that we are better together as a team than we are individually. And that's something that the Benefit Builders and the Scott Agency, being a Keystone partner, all speaks volumes to. So the fact that we've taken this time to recognize one of our partners, thank you for that, those of you that are watching our podcast, and recognize that when we are able to be your Benefit Builders, you become part of that team. So moving on to our normal podcast, today we're going to talk a little bit about why are healthcare costs rising in 2025. During our last podcast, we talked about the benefit of what a post-enrollment evaluation can be. We know most of you have renewed in January. A lot of you will renew in June, and some of you on other times. But these reviews can be helpful. And one of the things that we want to talk about is why costs are rising in 2025 and exactly what you can do about it, because some of the reasons that costs are increasing, you don't have any control of. We, as your Benefit Builders, can try to design a program that will help insulate you from some of these items. But let's get down into the minutia a little bit. Mark, would you like to start us off on some of the trends that you're seeing that are causing costs to rise in 2025?
Sure, Brian. I wish we had better news to message in today's podcast, but we don't. 2025 is projected to be another skyrocketing type of increase above and beyond just what we normally expect related to an aging population or just changes in your demographics. But the experts are predicting that the cost of healthcare is going to rise 7 to 8%. And what are some of the drivers in a 7 to 8% increase in healthcare costs? We'll start at the top. The healthcare providers themselves, to attract that talent and retain that talent, the labor payout is increasing. So even if we were in the same amount of healthcare being delivered, it's going to go up because they have to pay these people more. I think the other main driver, and Matt, you mentioned it during our last podcast, is the rise in utilization of specialty drugs. The new indications on using diabetic drugs for weight loss is just one example Also, cell and gene therapy is taking on more and more interest. And then biosimilars are emerging. And that may be the next generic phenomenon that hits the drug market. So again, 7 to 8%. Wish we had better news to report, Brian.
Right. And so where we're going to come from is the benefit builders wants to design a plan that will allow you to keep things on the wall that that will allow you to attract and maintain top client. And this is the proofs in the pudding that we that we are insurance agents and not necessarily podcasters. So forgive us for that. I can't do it. It's horrible. Anyway, we're real humans. So what I want to tell you is, if we can help you look at your policy and make it as efficient as possible, let's make sure we get the simple stuff right. Let's make sure we get the simple stuff nailed down so that all the employees know where to find things like the telehealth phone number, like the mail order prescription drugs, like them understanding that getting an annual physical is better than any wellness program that we can possibly provide you. We get those little things correct so that we can help stomach some of these changing environments within the system. We know that there are breakthrough drugs coming through. My son is on one of them, and he gets an injection every 8 weeks, and it's $25,000 per injection. Good news is that I like the boy, and I still want him around for a little while. So we figure out a way to do that. You have employees that are seeing those same things. Whether if you look at our past podcasts, you'll get a culmination of, through the use of surveys, through the use of interviews. We want to make sure that the balance is good between the employer and the employees. Matt, can you give us just some examples of how you've worked with employers to make sure we've got the small stuff and the simple stuff tightened up, where other brokers have never even talked to them about some of these things?
Yeah, there's lots of stuff that we've done with Mark's help. Mark and I have done together, and Mark and Brian have done together, as far as digging into the fine details of your health insurance plan. Some of those things are, looking into your prescription cost, looking into in-network usage versus out-of-network usage. And that goes from medical to dental and vision and everything else tied to it. As far as prescription costs, is there something cheaper out there that your employees don't know about? Is there a credit that you can give them, an online coupon you can print off, something through the pharmacy? A lot of times the employees don't know to ask those questions. They just pay the copay when they go in. And those are things that we really do enjoy helping you with.
Absolutely. And I'm absolutely surprised that when data is available, such as what are your top 10 prescription drugs, what are your top 10 states of illness, whenever those are available and they're not shared with you, the employer, you're missing out on an integral part. Your trusted advisor should be sharing that information. And it's a great big bullseye. This is what we need to target. If diabetes is prevalent in our workforce, then we are going to look at therapies and programs to help with that. We're going to look at those tier 3 specialty drugs. And yeah, we're going to do our due diligence. Is that the only drug that can be used to assist this employee? Is the reasons why they're on that drug and not others? And the list continues to go on. Mark does such a wonderful job of talking to the carriers and forcing the carriers to work, to say, guys, this is our list. What do you have internal that won't cost the employer anything that we can switch on? Me and Mark are constantly looking for levers that we can pull, push, and switch to help you guys and still keep costs low. Mark, tell us more.
Brian, I think your comments and Matt's comments could be captured in in a title called Health Plan Transparency. If you do nothing in 2025, you should at least consider re-educating your employees about the tools, the levers, to use Brian's term, that can be pulled to make sure that your employees understand the benefit package that you've invested in. How do you get that return? Are they using the benefits right? We always look at know before you go. This would be a good time to go through that exercise relative to your health episode. Should you use virtual health? When to use urgent care? When to use the emergency room? And I think those types of re-education tools should be re-examined in 2025, Brian, because organizations will continue to struggle attracting and retaining. So even in a year where you didn't expect to do any changes, you should focus on education. And then I think another big trend that's on the horizon is what's being called specialized or personalized benefits, again, to help attract and retain employees. What are some of those? Student loan repayments, mental health. We talked a lot about mental health in 2024. The technology that can now be used to communicate around benefits and trying to help package things that are a little more lifestyle related. I think we're going to see more conversations around personalized benefits, Brian.
Absolutely. And when we talk about the secret sauce, the secret sauce that makes the difference is when we, the three of us that are talking to you right now, are able to get the employees to row in the same direction as the employer and vice versa. When we get everybody on board, so that education that Mark's talking about could come from a video from me that you share during a department meeting, or it can go out to each individual employee. You as an employer, I can tell you, not a lot of people have thought about the tools that we use. We have successfully used standalone transplant policies to defer the costs of transplants, liver transplants, any kind of transplant, away from the policy. It was cost effective. It allowed us to tell the underwriters that you don't have to worry about this particular risk. We're going to be able to help you if we have to move your product. And I always want to emphasize that we're not product pushers. The first thing that we want to do is to take a look at the product and the switches and levers that we can pull on it to see that your current broker has you as efficient as possible. And when we find that everything works out well, sure, we can move you to a different carrier. But there are carriers in the system right now that are causing us a ton of problems. And without saying the carrier's name, it's all over the news right now. They weren't playing nice with Mercy Medical Systems. Now they're not playing nice with MU in Colombia. We want to do our very best to insulate your employees from those network nightmares. Matt talked about using in-network and out-of-network. That's absolutely huge. If we look at a report and you've got 70% in-network utilization, me and Matt and Mark are going to say, how do we get that into the 90s? And a lot of it's communication. Some of it may be talking to the doctors. Why aren't you in the network? It could be a suggestion of the employee. You can choose to go to this doctor at a higher cost, where if you were in network, it's a lower cost. All of these are efficiency strategies. And I think what you'll find when you look at our podcasts, it's really what we are, is we want to be an extension of your team. We want to be that trusted advisor, because I can tell you we are much better insurance agents than we are podcasters.
And one more step to that, Brian, you mentioned a certain hospital not being in network. Mm-hmm. I just met with a large group last week, and they explained that they weren't the happiest with their current agent, their current company, because they weren't told that one of the major hospitals in their region is not in the network. And they didn't know that until employees started going and realizing when they got their EOBs back that they were out of network. Those are the things we want to help you with. We want to ask you those questions. What hospitals do you need to make sure are there for your employees? Even if they're scattered throughout the state, we want to make sure that everybody's got the hospital in network that they're going to need.
Right. So if you're looking for a trusted advisor relationship, if you're looking for someone that's going to be a backstop and work with your particular team, not only your employees, but you as the business owner, you're focused on running a business. It's what you're supposed to do. You might tell us, these are the 2 people or the 3 people that run my employee benefits, and I need you to be in lockstep with them. So it just starts with a conversation. Mark says it best when the conversation is free. We have our pillars of excellence, which we refer to a lot in our videos and our podcasts. And the pillars of excellence is fantastic because it's so simple. It's the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. And that works really good for me. And we have helped a ton of customers with that. Mark, what do you have in closing?
I'm going to focus my closing comments today, Brian, on employee engagement. I think when employers are operating in a rising cost environment, and we know the cost of labor is going to continue to rise. So a tool we often use to measure employee engagement is the employee survey tool. We talked earlier about personalized benefits. We talked earlier about that if you do nothing, we know your healthcare costs are going to go up. So make sure that you have the right plan design. This would be an excellent time of the year to survey your employees, not just on employee benefits, but other employee-employer relation type factors like, are you getting enough training and development? How do you feel about working for XYZ Corporation? Do you feel you have the right benefits? Because if an employer is going to have to continue to invest in a benefit program, it might as well be the right one. And an employee survey is an excellent way to measure, do you have the right benefit program?
And when Mark's talking about the employee survey, we are here to help. We don't expect you to go out and Google employee surveys. And what we can tell you is the employee surveys, like Mark just said, the employer is able to glean a ton of information off of those surveys. The surveys help us, your agents, to know, do you need or could you benefit from a flexible spending account? Could you benefit from a health reimbursement account? What about an HSA offering? Maybe it's a multi-level, why am I losing my words all of a sudden? A dual option where you can offer one option that might be great for most of the employees, but then you can offer a slightly richer benefit for those employees that said, I'm willing to pay a little extra, possibly for a lower deductible. The devil's in the details. And that's why you run your business and you rely on people like us to work out those details. So give us 30 minutes of your time. We just want to sit with you. We'll go through the pillars of excellence and we'll do a lot of listening. Remember, there's no cost for that. The benefit builders are here. We've got Mark Blassie, our architect. You've got me and Matt as far as boots on the ground. And if you're on a level funded plan, we'll talk about that. If you're on a fully insured plan, we'll talk about that. If you're on a self-funded or a partially self-funded, we'll talk about that. Anything in closing, Matt?
No, we appreciate your time as always. Thank you.
Mark Blassie, thank you very much, brother. Appreciate everything. And to you guys, help spread the word. We are the Scott Agency, a Keystone partner. Look up our website, look up our YouTube channel, look up our Facebook channel. We're here to help. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.